me read this. It says, these are dispelling myths. Most of what we think we know about witches is wrong. Witches always wear black. Some witches like and wear the color black, but they do not wear it 24/7, if at all. A contemporary emphasis on beauty lends itself to a burst of different colors and accessories. Modern witches often adorn their clothing with tokens that venerate goddesses such as Artemis. Jewelry can be decorative, talismanic, and devotional. And in my case, it's usually all three at the same time. Pam Grossman, author of What is a Witch, told Bustle in 2019. However, in her 1978 book, Witchcraft for Tomorrow, Doreen Valiente, a founder of modern Wicca, writes, the traditional attire of witches is generally believed to be nudity. I think that last part is more closer to right. Let me read another one. It says, witches are evil. Though the fear persists, the vast majority of witches are not evil. As delineated in the 1998 Witch Encyclopedia, Wicca A to Z, the negative misconception that witchcraft is diabolic has caused many followers to stop referring to themselves as witches and go by Wiccans. Instead, Wicca opposes the use of harmful magic and does not advocate people hurting others physically or emotionally, per witchcraft expert Raymond Buckland in his book Wicca for Life, 2003. Evil people casting evil spells is more a product of their own psychological makeup and less a principle within the practice of witchcraft. This one says, witches all own a black cat. According to Greek mythology, Hecate, the goddess of magic, the moon in witchcraft, used polecats as familiars, supernatural beings that aid witches. On June 13, 1233, Pope Gregory IX issued his Vox in Roma edict, which promulgated that cats were the incarnation of Satan. Witches honored the natural world, having deep respect for plants and animals. Wiccan priests carried wind, Fellingstar told History.com. Affection between human and animal therefore began to be seen as diabolical or devilish. How witches came to be tied to black cats is not known, but one possibility is due to the fact that they are harder to see at night. Witches curse enemies. One of the main tenets of the modern pagan religion Wicca is the rule of three, which holds that 3 times that thou givest returns to thee, which many witches point out applies to negative magic as well. Many witches prefer to spell magic with the K at the end to differentiate it from stage magic. In other words, if you curse your enemy, said curse would come back and bite you. Therefore, many practicing witches steer clear of them. Witchcraft equals Satanism. According to the book Wiccan Beliefs and Practices, 2001, notions of the devil and hell are concepts of Christian theology and don't exist in the Wiccan religion. A British male witch who calls himself Meridine once told the BBC, we don't do anything sinister like devil worship, and we don't make human or animal sacrifices. Wiccans also believe in the existence of many gods and goddesses. This makes Wicca more akin to Buddhism and Hinduism as a polytheistic religion. Witches are all female. Around the world, there are millions of male witches, Wiccan practitioners or otherwise. Even during the era of fear and persecution of approximately 25% of people accused of witchcraft were male. In Iceland, from 1625 to 1685, over 90% of people persecuted for witchcraft were men, and 6 of the 20 accused witches executed in the Salem witch trials were men. Today, the once ambiguous term warlock for a male witch has fallen into disuse, and even been disputed entirely, in part because many female witches feel the use of the term will genderize the witchcraft community, especially to outsiders. Witches are all alike. The term witch is an all-encompassing word for a practitioner of several different disciplines within witchcraft, though they share a common history of persecution. Not two witches are alike. There are men, women, and members of the LGBTQ community who consider themselves witches. Contemporary witches are also often members of other marginalized groups. Witches only cast spells for bad things. In short, no, in fact, throughout history, many people have turned to witches for exact opposite love spells. One such spell involves carving the name and birth date of the intended lover into a candle burned for 7 days. Witches also cast spells for good things like passing a test or getting a promotion. Furthermore, Wiccan spells often focus on healing, protection, and fertility. Famous modern witch Pam Grossman keeps a copy of the Constitution on her altar next to her talisman and candles to keep the United States safe from darkness. This one says, witches all belong to a coven. A witchcraft has stepped into greater acceptance. The need for covens has become casual. Covens still form as a defense against societal scorn, yet not all witches belong to one. Many witches prefer to practice on their own. Plus, a solo practitioner can guide hundreds of thousands of witches via social media, making the need for an in person coven obsolete. Many witches also wish to maintain privacy and keep their practices secret without any fear of misunderstanding or backlash. Interesting. The story of witches. From the shadows of troublesome history, witchcraft has survived, evolved, and flourished. This is the story of witches, a phenomenon with roots that extend all over the world, and practitioners, fictitious and real, ancient and modern, who live by a code that encourage good deeds, fair treatment, and living peacefully with the natural world.
Eve.
Nah.
What's the
Oh,
main?
it was because they were saying that that's the root of the patriarchy, and they were citing it as an example of the reason why, the basis of the patriarchy, where the patriarchy gets its, legitimacy from. And I think there's some truth to that, because the whole thing about Eve too, that she was made from Adam's rib, and it's like, okay, so she's lesser, and then the one that was equal to Eve, to Adam, she was a she demon. She just won't listen, she won't submit to her man, and then Eve went and gave Adam the food from the apple
Uh,
from the tree of life, and she caused the original sin. These women just ain't no good. They just inherently bad.
well, I mean, I would agree that that is the first like symbolism of the patriarchy. But like I said, I mean, I'm sure that's the reason why that story came about was to promote the patriarchy.
Yeah, exactly. So if
Yeah.
they look at it like that, then maybe they can understand better. But still, I mean, you have to sympathize with their argument, because what happens is then the dudes always go back to the Bible. Everybody go back to the Bible. Oh yeah, you better submit to your man. She say it in the Bible. Man and a woman, marriage, household. That's the way it goes. It's in the Bible. Woman, you submit.
So now I'd be like, well, what did they do before the Bible? How did they get to believe what they believed when they were putting it in the Bible? Well,
That's when you get smacked. Psh, shut up, woman. Asking them questions. You don't know philosophical stuff. That's for men's to think about. If the pastor didn't say that, you better go read your Bible. That's what you should do. No, but really, what happened beforehand? Why we have to go by the Bible? Like, can we use some other book too? Shut up.
I heard somebody say that women are God. You done done it now, bitch. Uh,
Now you don't get to eat. I'm gonna lock you in the closet. It's
no,
funny, but
go
it's
go kneel in the corner on that rice, and
yeah,
you sit there until I tell you to get up.
it's funny, but there's a lot of that shit going on out there. Um, Let me read this. It says, for centuries, popular depictions of witches included cauldrons, craggy noses, and scary rituals. Not so today. In the 21st century, witches write bestseller books, host podcasts, and have hundreds of thousands of followers on social media. Search for the hashtag witches of Instagram and you'll find more than 8.7 million posts. Airbnb organized a fall equinox ritual retreat in 2019, and the psychic services of industry is worth about 2 billion annually. Witchcraft is more than acceptable, it's practically mainstream. There are approximately 1.5 million practicing witches across the United States. That's as many members as the National Association of Realtors. In 2019, a week before Halloween, the New York Times ran a story with the headline, "When Did Everybody Become a Witch?" The story went on to proclaim that the time has come to come out of the so-called broom closet. So everybody's a witch now, apparently.
I guess.
It says
So,
turbulent times have been cited as a contributing factor to witchcraft's soaring popularity. So too have changing attitudes toward traditional religion. Though Christianity is still the dominant belief in the US, there's also been a shift to more esoteric or pagan based faiths, such as Wicca. Not all witches practice Wicca, and not all Wiccans or pagans practice witchcraft. In 2012, Pew Research study found that 31% of respondents under the age of 30 had doubts about the existence of God. In witchcraft, some young people have found a place of religious autonomy. It makes sense that witchcraft and the occult would rise as society becomes increasingly postmodern. Christian author Julie Roy wrote to the Christian Post in 2018. Plus, Wicca has effectively repackaged witchcraft for millennial consumption. No longer is witchcraft and paganism satanic and demonic. What do you think? It says the witch is a feminine archetype who has authority over herself. She has power on her own terms. It says, we are the granddaughters of the witches you could not burn. On January 21st, 2017, millions of people in Washington, D.C., as well as in cities and towns across America, joined the Women's March protest. When the crowds were people who proudly identified as witches, a nod to an old idea that has taken on a modern meaning. One sign at the march read, "We are the granddaughters of the witches you cannot burn." Other protesters held up banners proclaiming "Witches against white supremacy" and "Hex the patriarchy." These witch-themed references were the culmination of large cultural shifts built over generations, an effort that is still ongoing. The age-old association connecting women, witchcraft, and evil has instead been replaced, at least for many, by an embrace of witches as a symbol of women's empowerment. The witch is a feminine archetype who has authority over herself, Pam Grossman, host of Witch Wave podcast, explained in the New York Times in 2019. She has power on her own terms, and because of that, she is, I believe, the ultimate feminist icon. What do you think about that? This is the other part of this that I wanted to touch on. That's why I called it the New Age witches, because this don't have nothing to do with what the actual thing is. This is like political. This is like the Me Too. This is like the feminism, the feminist movement taking over. And so the chicks wear the little signals that make it look like they're a witch. They label themselves as a witch, but really it's a political statement of being like a feminist against the patriarchy. No men, men suck. We don't need them. What do you
yeah,
think?
potentially, but you're saying like the opposite of what we're seeing as far as the society going up against the witch. This is more so the witch taking their stance of you know their own power and saying screw the people, like anybody that goes against what they're saying.
Well, this is a
'Cause-
flip. This is the new age witch. This is the flip on it. It's political. It's about being a feminist, and they identify as a witch, and you see them, they walk around. This is something you can see if you look, and they wear these necklaces and stuff, like different, even their outfits, and it's like, I'm a witch, you know what I'm saying? But they don't know nothing about what a witch, being a witch is. They don't know nothing about
Yeah,
the elements. They don't know nothing about what people would call voodoo or anything. They don't know any of that.
they
All
don't
they're
have
on,
any high,
they're
any kind of high signs or
none of
any
that.
kind of,
They just
yeah.
they just on this political thing of feminism, and they're using the witch as their like symbol to identify politically. We don't need men. So the witch symbol now, it stands for, we don't need men. No men at all.
Yeah, that's sick. I mean, that's just as bad as, men saying that they don't need women. You know, uh, those, what's this, the MGTOW, whatever the hell them dudes are. I mean, that's just as bad. I mean, any extreme is really not healthy for anybody. So I don't know. I'd say they definitely are misguided. They need to get them some and shut the hell up. Because that's usually they crazy because they not getting the balance of having a man around. Like, I mean, some people really start losing their mind because they don't have that, and like some people, all their life never really had it. Like the balance of seeing their mother with a man, like or consistently in the household to where it's like they can have real balanced thoughts, or can see the benefits to how, if you never ever see the benefits of what a man can be, or is or can be, you're gonna always have, you're gonna have that, I guess your mindset is gonna be like, oh well, you get used to the idea that women have done everything. This is for on women, because I mean, of course, I'm sure it's hard for a boy to grow up and be like, oh, men ain't shit. Like, yeah, you are one. But for women, I can see like some of them get that way, but it's a sickness because they never had the real balance of family structure with a man and a woman around.
Really sad. I think the boy could grow up to hate men too. And I think it projects in their behavior towards women when they're abusive to women, and they feel like, men ain't shit anyway. So, I'm just gonna be ain't shit.
Yeah, well, hopefully that's a rare thing, because that's, to me, I think that most guys is just like, okay, you know what? Because I mean, I guess just like I had to, say it with my father, like we're all human, everybody messes up, and my job is to try to, do better than he did, and try to lead the world in a better place than I found it. So if we all live that way, which I get, I mean, I know everybody don't think that way, but I would still say that there's a majority of people who do look at it that way than that don't.
Let me read some more of this. It says the seeds of this cultural shift were planted in the aftermath of the witch trials and bloomed in the era of modern American activism. On Halloween Day, 1968, a group of women dressed as stereotypical witches with brooms, capes, and pointy black hats descended on Lower Manhattan to hex Wall Street, calling themselves the Women's International Terrorist Conspiracy from Hell, which they eventually targeted beauty pageants, universities, and the Playboy Club. And what did Witch think of marriage? They passed out leaflets with the warning, always a bride, never a person. The Witch Manifesto was also advanced for its time, a declaration that reads like it could have been written today. If you are a woman and dare to look within yourself, you are a witch. You make your own rules. You are free and beautiful. which branches formed across the country and even in Japan. One female organizer referred to the blending of witch iconography with the women's liberation movement of the late 1960s and early 70s as guerrilla theater, a way to reclaim their power. So you see, it's coming back. You notice the have you seen bell bottoms? The bell bottoms are coming back. That was what, the 70s. So this thing here was late 60s, early 70s. So the theme was, the witch iconography blended with the women's liberation movement.
Yeah.
So that's the idea. And that's what's happening now. I see it a lot. It's all over the place. And that's what be killing me, because then people be like, oh, she's a witch or whatever. And it's like, no, no. She's a feminist.
clear, clear cut.
There, there,
Um.
there's a bit of a difference there.
Well, I mean, tomato, tomato, because I mean they have the same principles. I mean, they might go by a different word or different name, but I mean, if the it's just like if it looked like a duck, quack like a duck. I mean, most likely it's a duck. So I mean, if you got the same ideals and the principles of a feminist, I mean, even if you called yourself, you know, a magician, like you still doing the same shit.
Let me read this. It says, symbolically, what was being protested against was clear: male hierarchies of power dating back to ancient times. Some scholars cite the Lilith story in Judaic and Mesopotamian mythology as a cradle of patriarchy. Lilith, Adam's first wife before Eve, was branded a she demon and banished from the Garden of Eden for disobeying her husband. What do you think about that?
Well, I mean, like I said, that's Lilith's story is kind of a new deal, new thing for me. That's not something that I really knew much of before you started speaking on it, and so I mean, I don't really know much about that, but I would say that is a way for them to, because I mean, if you, I mean, one of the common things in the Bible was how horrible women are. So, like trying to demonize them, and then I mean, I guess if they didn't want to give women the
Hold
power, so
on. Witchcraft as F